Hi everyone, I'm Zhi Heng. Welcome back to my channel. This video is not a clickbait. I know the thumbnail and the titles might suggest that this is something that only happens in dreams, but it is not, because I actually achieved that. If you're interested in the entire award ceremony where I received the Top in the World award for getting the highest mark in A-level history, you could check out my previous video. But this video is going to touch upon the topic of how I achieved that. I'm going to talk about my entire journey from picking up the subject until I receive my grades and the Top in the World award. I also want to share what I think are the biggest reasons that I received the award, what I think are the biggest motivating factors that enabled me to do well for the exam, and how you could replicate that study environment so that hopefully you could achieve better grades. So the first thing I want to talk about was my initial motivation. So why did I pick up A-level history as a fourth subject, and why I didn't get to sit for the exam in my college and had to do the exam as a private candidate? So it went like this. While I was in college, when I initially joined, it was in July 2021. So that was a while ago, I think 3 years ago, and A-level history wasn't offered as a subject in my college. Now the reason for it was quite simple. It was because my college has run out of a history teacher, so unfortunately I couldn't take the subject at the start. So in the beginning, I had no idea what history was about, especially A-level history, because I didn't pick history as a GCSE subject, so I didn't know much about the subject matter and whether I would be interested in it or not. So I didn't think much about it, and I just go with the subjects which I am familiar with. That's biology, maths, further maths, and economics. So the reason why I say these subjects are familiar to me was because I did these subjects in my GCSEs, like biology, maths, and economics. So I sort of know what those subjects are about. But initially when I began college, I didn't know which course I would like to pursue at university. I had very little direction. So in my first year, I was just studying for AS, and I did the exam in June 2022. So after AS, I've decided to drop biology as one of my A-level subjects because I thought I couldn't cope, and I felt that my passion for the subject has been lost. I couldn't gather the motivation to self-study for the subject anymore, so I decided to just drop it. Now, I posted a video here about why you should never drop an A-level subject. If you're interested in the video, you could click on this link. So it was a very stupid thing to do, but at the time I didn't realize that, so I dropped biology as one of my A-level subjects, and I proceeded with the other three. So the way things are arranged in my college was that you are going to sit for maths in your first year of college if you are going to do further maths. The reason for that was, if you have covered the entire A-level maths syllabus, it would be easier for you to progress onto further maths, because most of the knowledge that you need for further maths is going to be based on A-level maths. So A-level maths is going to furnish the foundational knowledge for you to progress onto the next level. So I did my A-level maths in my first year, and further maths and economics is going to be set in my second year. So I went on with college, and in my second year, around March or April 2023, which was around 2 months before I did my final A2 exam, I had the idea that, well, university admissions wasn't going too well for me. At the time, I was rejected by almost all universities which I have applied to. So that's LSE, UCL, Oxford, and King's. So I was having a very serious thought about whether I should take a gap year and reapply to universities again, because I think I have the capability to do well for my exam. And I just thought about why I wasn't offered a place. And finally, I came to the conclusion that maybe my application wasn't competitive enough because I only had 3 A-level subjects instead of 4. So I know most of my friends had 4 A-level subjects, and I only had 3 because I dropped biology right after AS, which was a decision that I regret dearly. So I want to compensate for that mistake. And I thought maybe the right thing to do was to just take a gap year and pick up another A-level subject. So I thought seriously about which subject I should pick as my 4th A-level subject. And I finally settled on history because I want it to be not so technical based like science subjects or maths, because basically I've done every math subject which is possible for me to take. So initially I settled on either history or psychology, but I bought the psychology coursework and I sort of read through it, and I thought, well, this is kind of a heavy subject, like you have a lot of words to memorize. But I also had a bit exposure to A-level history because a few of my friends picked it up in their second year when a new history teacher came to my college. So history was offered only in my second year. So a few of my friends did this subject at college, but I didn't because I was too late to register. As I said, I only decided to take history in around March to April 2023. So I had 2 months before I had to sit for the exam. That's not possible. To sit for the exam in May, June, it was too late. But I looked at the textbook and I decided the subject matter was quite interesting. It was just like reading a storybook where things happen and you just explore the cause and consequences of the events. So I remember when I picked up the textbook, the first topic was about imperialism, about the old empires. So it was quite interesting. But for psychology, it was a different case. I opened it up, it was like control, experiment, things like that. So I decided, well, let's not get into it. And I picked history over psychology. So I mentioned I picked A-level history as my fourth subject because I want to increase the competitiveness of my university application. That was the initial motivation. But when you apply, you wouldn't have received the A-level history grade because for Oxbridge, you had to submit your application by the end of October or by mid-October. So at that time, your results wouldn't have been released. So what I did is I went to an educational institution in Malaysia which provides homeschooling, and I asked them whether it was possible for them to just give me courses and teach me for around 3 to 4 months and then give me a predicted grade according to my progress. And I finally found an academy that was willing to do so. Most of them just told me it wasn't possible that I could even teach you within such a short period, 3 to 4 months. And you could do well for the exam. So most of them just rejected me. So in the end, I just had to go at it alone. But I did find one academy that was willing to provide me with tuition and a predicted grade. I think I was quite fortunate in that because the teaching quality was alright. I had a few sessions and each session was a very short session, like 1 to 2 hours, like 2 hours at most. But my chief intention was to just get the predicted grades. Because that's what I need. I need someone to predict a grade for me so that I could include that subject, history, as my fourth subject in my university application. At the time, I was aiming Cambridge, and I think their admission requirement was quite competitive. And I thought if I had 4 A-level subjects, at least I would be shortlisted to go to the next round instead of just being filtered out and not being given an interview. So I had my predicted grades, which was history. I was predicted A star for the subject. And I thought to myself, well, hopefully I'll achieve it. The way I perceived history was that I had real passion for history as an A-level subject. To this date, I still think that A-level history is the best A-level subject as compared to the other subjects because I think that it was the only subject which shaped my character and exposed me to an entirely different field. And no subject has been able to make that kind of impact on me before. I did maths and further maths, and I would say that these subjects, they did train me into an academically vigorous person. But in terms of personal growth, I think A-level maths did absolutely zero in that regard. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not comparing A-level subjects. I think each has their own merit. But A-level history was my favorite subject among the 4. So I was very dedicated. I studied days after days. I probably spent on average around 10 hours per day to study for the subject. Maybe that's an exaggeration because I didn't really keep track. But at that time, history A-level was sort of blended into my daily life. Whenever I wake up and I pick up a history course book, like for example, I'm with this book. I had it on my table all day and you have a field course book on my desk. I would just wake up and if I have free time, I'm just going to flip through it and read what's in it, like democracy, USSR. And it doesn't feel like studying to me. It felt like it was part of my life. I was having a great time reading this course book. It's not like A-level further maths or economics where you have to consciously conjure up the motivation to study for the subject. But for history, everything just comes naturally. You would make time for it regardless of what. So that was an interesting period. So basically, how did I study? Where do I get the resources from? Did you just create a study plan on your own without formal academic guidance? Well, I wouldn't say that is entirely true because I did get some form of academic support before I left my A-level college. So that was with the new history teacher. There was a new history teacher which came to my college. Not sure when, but it was in my second year. So that teacher, Dr. Anklin, gave me a lot of study materials, including the scheme of work and some study documents which was online in PDF form. And he just sent them en masse into my college email address. So I just downloaded all the documents I need And afterwards, I also went to my friends. They just gave me these books, basically all the physical materials that contributed a lot as well. After getting all these study materials from my friends, I felt that the resources were sufficient for me to study for the subject alone, because I ran through the scheme of work and I saw that all of the information I need for the subject was covered in these books. But I still had some doubts initially, so I asked my friends, well, this book seems so thin. This book, which was already one of the thicker books, seems very thin. I remember while I was studying for my further maths subject, the book was so thick, and it wasn't the only one. Like, you have many books, Collins and Cambridge, all publishers. You have to just grind through those so that you could get enough practice to do well at the actual exam. But history wasn't the same. It was all very thin books. But when you look at the books, it's all words, like one lines after another. So completely different nature, I think. But my friends reassured me that this is all you need. The books contains all the things you need to know about the subject matter. So to answer the question of whether I did get any additional help, yes, I did. Because without all these study materials, nothing would have been possible, because you wouldn't have a way to study for the subject. I would say the only thing that is more important than formal academic guidance, like a teacher or an A-level college, was that you need to have study materials, resources like this. And you need to get notes from your seniors. Notes especially, I think, was a very effective form of study materials, because all the information was just packed together, and it really saves a lot of time for you to look through the entire syllabus. But don't rely too much on notes, because if your notes are written by the others and you're a better student than the person writing the note, then you'll be constraining yourself to a lower standard. And another thing I would note here is the importance of going through the scheme of work, because for A-level history, these books are thin, and depending on the publisher, the information imparted wouldn't be the same across all publishers. Even in the Cambridge coursebook, some information that you need as according to the scheme of work wouldn't be included in these books. So you will have to do your own research, go through the internet, or just ask your friends about it, whether they have information. For example, the paper 3 that I did for history was about Cold War, origins and development of Cold War. You could hardly get any books about that. You need to do your own research, go through the IGCSE coursebook even, or just look at the things that people write. If you watch my previous video on history prep, like A-level history prep, you'd see that I had a few books which are completely outside of my syllabus. It was written by Macaulay. Yeah, I just checked. It was written by Martin Macaulay. So the book is called Origins of the Cold War. Sometimes you have to look for books that are outside of your A-level syllabus or outside of the recommended reading list. But these books, I think, are the real gem. So now on to the topic of how I think I achieved that. I went to the award ceremony where I see other very bright students, like those getting the highest mark in the world for further maths and A-level law, and I asked them, what would you say are the secrets to your success, and how do you maintain the motivation? The most common answer that I get was that they don't know why they were the person that got the highest scores. And for a while, I didn't know either. It just came out of the blue. You're not sure why you are the one getting the top mark. So for example, at my college, where most of the students actually attending classes didn't achieve a very good history score on average. And I thought to myself, why was this happening? And I would say the real secret was the passion for the course. For the very bright students who studied all day for the entire course, they don't really consider it as studying, because the subject that they study, like history or further maths, it just blended so well in their daily life that they are enjoying the process of studying for the subject. Most students who got very good scores, they really enjoyed what they are studying. Some to the point where they don't consider it as studying at all. It's just part of their daily life, reading their course book and having their own observations or thoughts about the subject. Now you might ask me here, what if I don't have any passion for the subject that I am studying? My answer to that concern would be you always have some sort of passion for the course, but you just haven't found out yet. I say that because passion, or I should say interest, could be manufactured artificially. If you spend a lot of time studying for the subject, you will naturally get good. And once you get good, you feel motivated and you want to study further. So you build up a very healthy cycle of getting better and better grades and feeling more and more motivated to study for the subject. And I think that's a good way to go about it. At the initial phase, you do need discipline to stick to the subject and try to make additional effort to keep up, and until a certain phase where you are confident about your progress and you're getting better and better grades in your semester exam, then you could form natural confidence in your ability to do well for the subject, and your passion for the subject will grow. So I guess that sums up the message that I want to convey in this video. If you are currently an A-level student, or if you just want to increase the productivity of your study time, then I hope this video is going to be helpful for you. If I could sum up the message of the entire video, I think it's try to pick a subject that you have real passion for. But if you don't have a natural liking for the subject, convince yourself that you do. And once you have better grades, the passion and interest will grow naturally. So that's it for this video. If you find this video helpful, please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.